Hello everyone. Today I'm on my favorite topic. The topic is students, learning, knowledge, and that is life. When I was a little boy, my mother spoke to me about the qualities of a student. I must have been 10 maximum, and it still rings true. There's a Sanskrit phrase which I'm not any good at reciting, but the meaning is, as a student, you have to be as focused as a stork. You know, when the stork is looking for fish, focused as a stork, struggling as hard as the crow. You know, the crow keeps trying, and as ready to wake up like a dog. You know, a dog has very light sleep. So gone are the days, these days, it's not quite like that, but a student has to be totally devoted to learning. There's nothing called being a student, really. You have to be a learner. A teacher can never teach you. What's it called? You can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. You can sit me in school, I'll be daydreaming, playing with the pencil, flying little aeroplanes, looking outside, looking here, or looking straight and thinking about what's happening at home. What am I going to eat tonight? Why did he bully me? Oh, he looks very smart. Why did the teacher give him? So you cannot force someone to learn. You can encourage someone to learn. So the word student actually means to be eager, to be jealous, to be wanting to do more, to be zealous also, desiring to study. And the word student comes from the Latin word studare, which means the eager, zealous, hungry person. That is the meaning of learning. So learning is the active process. Teaching doesn't work. You cannot teach anyone anything. The person must want to learn. Yes, I know people sit with thin books, mathematics overnight, or physics by a learned professor for 5 rupees, and you'll pass your exam. But it doesn't stay with you. In Hindi, it's called Aaye Ram Gaye Ram. Ear one ear, out the other. So that is not learning. Learning has to not only be intellectual, you also have to believe in it and you have to act it out. So if you are a professor of mathematics and I say to you, the price of one candle is 99p, how much is price of 5 candles? 4.95. How did I do that? Because it's 1 penny less. So 1 penny less minus from 100 is 5. So out of 5 pounds, you reduce 5. Why I'm good at it is because I learned to like mathematics. By the way, I've spoken English for the last 73 years in some form with my Indian accent and everything. But I still have a book by my bedside called Fowler's Modern English Usage. I've lived in England for 47 years. I'm still learning English. It's one of my passions. I want to speak English better than the Englishman. I'm here now. And even my Hindi, meri Hindi bhi utni buri nahi hai. And I'm learning by sitting among Urdu speakers. I'm learning to say zira, takalluf. How you speak, how you pronounce matters. It's how you dress. If I dress like this, you think I'm an Englishman. If I dress in dhoti kurta, he's come from the Indian village. If I dress like a Maharaja, you'll think, oh, he's... So dress is as important as pronunciation. But getting back to being a student, so the student has to be eager to learn. If you're not hungry, you don't eat. Doesn't matter how good the food is. You cannot make me eat. If I'm hungry, simple food tastes very nice. So you have to be hungry for knowledge. And in Islam, the first word is ikra, which means knowledge. They say you have to go to China if necessary to learn. So that means you have to take extreme difficulties. My life as a student was quite easy. I went to a Catholic school and the priests were good and very open. I learned hobbies. I enjoyed my class. I was with a fellow in Bangalore and his son says, Dad, I want to be in my school for this weekend. So I asked him in detail, why does your son who lives at home want to be? He said, oh, they are bringing a microscope and a telescope and he wants to be in the queue to look at stars. That's what it is about, to be hungry, to want to learn. I myself learn every single day, whether it's a new word, whether it's something in politics, whether it's to do with painting, whether it's to do with Indian classical music, anything to learn. Because if you're not learning, you're not growing. The beauty of the human is what's between our ears, the brain. And if the brain is not fed, it shrinks, literally and symbolically. So why do we learn? Because we want to grow. Why do we go on Mount Everest? Because we want to grow. Why do we go on adventure holidays? We want to go there. I've recently been to a cave 300 million years old. It's underground in Yorkshire. Why did I have to do this? I'm not a fit athlete, but fit athletes wouldn't have the courage to do it because they're very narrow passages. What's the worst thing? I'll die. That's the only fear we have in life. If you're not afraid to die, you can do anything. So coming back to knowledge and learning, learning is what humans are about. Not teaching, not being a student, being hungry, being wanting the knowledge, being wanting to learn. And when I see students with their feet on the table, sitting with the professor across the table here in the UK, it doesn't work. It does not work. The student has to be humble as well. In India, we have the Guru Shishya tradition. And in other cultures, we have Ustad Shagird. And they say, Ustad ka hukka bharo. Look after your teacher. Respect your teacher. Kabir said in Banaras 400 years ago, Guru Gobind dono khade kaake lagu paaye, Balihari Guru aapne jin Govind diya bataye. This is Kabir, a very uneducated person technically, but he had a big influence on the Hindus. He was a Muslim, he was a weaver, never went to college or school, but God had given him wisdom. And he said, if my teacher, my master is there, my Ustad, and if God is standing, I'll go to the Ustad and saying, please teach me how to reach God. So we respect teachers very much. And if you don't do that, you cannot learn. Because knowledge can flow from the teacher to the student most of the time, not the other way around. Did you know that the first university in the world with 5,000 teachers and 20,000 students, do you know where it started? It's near Rawalpindi. It's in Takshila, Taxila, Takshila, the first university in the world, 3,000 years old. So knowledge is very important. People traveled all those. They didn't have telephones, they didn't have wireless, they didn't have Facebook, they didn't have WhatsApp, they hardly had paper. And at that time they used to write on copper and so on. So, and people came from China, people came from Iran to learn there in Takshila. Now, the qualities of a student I was telling you, let me say it in English. First is curiosity. As a medical student, I wanted to learn how the heart flickers. So I had a frog's heart, and you'll put one drop and the speed goes up with adrenaline. And the same thing happens in human beings. So you have to have the thirst for knowledge. The second quality is diligence. If you take a topic, stay with it, stay with it, stay with it till you learn enough and you're sick and leave. Perseverance. Doesn't matter if the book is not in the library. You can't find it anywhere. If you keep looking, it'll appear. One day the maker will give it to you. Another quality is discipline. If you're sitting learning in the library, you can't say, I'll go for a bottle of Coke now. Oh, I'm feeling hungry. There's no point doing it. You have to be totally diligent about it. Another word is creativity. Sometimes somebody will teach you. Sometimes today you can learn from the internet. So there's many ways of learning. But there's another thing about learning that most people don't talk about. It's called unlearning. If I have got a knowledge, for instance, you say nothing travels faster than the speed of light. Wrong. They have proven that you can go faster than light. At one time, they thought the world was flat. Wrong. We now know it's round. So you have to let go of the past and keep looking at today and tomorrow. That is what research is about. The word research means moving on. And our belief systems about science, about arts also moves on. So you have to let go of the past knowledge and take on fresh knowledge. Update yourself. And if you're doing that, you'll be a happier soul. You'll be looking at the world through fresh and broader eyes and enjoy more things. One thing personally I'll tell you, if I don't like a subject, I go and research it. Because if you like something, you can be in an emotional, psychological, educational bubble. You know one subject very well, but if you meet people, you can only talk about that, like a professor in one subject. Nothing wrong with knowing one subject deeply, but you need some width of knowledge. So I've told you the qualities of a student. I'll repeat: curiosity, diligence, perseverance, disciplines, creativity. These 5, but I'll add unlearning the past. I could talk about formal education. I've already mentioned Takshila. And that was the proper university. And by the way, there was no student fees. Everything was taught free. Because knowledge is very important. Knowledge is what humans are different from monkeys, elephants. They also learn. The idea that humans are the only intelligent beings is not correct. They are good in other fields. Bees, do you know that bees dance to tell the other bees where the honey is? They're giving them the GPS of where the flowers and therefore honey to be nurtured is. So they give the message. And did you know that when swans fly, the swan in the front works very hard. And if a swan is ill, it starts weakening, a second swan goes down with it. Where did they learn to be compassionate? It's all fact, And then when they are better, they join another group and fly together. So we have a lot to learn from animals too. There's a lot we teach them, but there's a lot they can teach us. Or look at children in our own species. Children have a lot to teach us. They are pure-minded. They get angry for a few minutes and they're fine again. Look at a dog. Someone who kicks his pet dog, the dog still forgives and loves them. There is a very famous story about Japan. There was a professor who had a pet dog. He was a single guy. He would take the dog to the railway station, tie it there, leave some food, go and work in the university, come back, take the dog home. One day, the professor unfortunately died in the university. And the dog waited and waited, and the station master could see this. The station master found out. And that dog has now died, obviously, but they have erected a statue. It's about learning from animals about loyalty. All of you who have pets know how quickly they learn. But the learning of animals is a bit simple. You have heard about the Pavlov dog, where you ring a bell when you give it food. You ring a bell, you give it food. You don't give it food and you ring a bell, the dog will still salivate. This is conditioned learning, means it's a reflex. So when I drive a car, I don't think, oh, that's the steering wheel, oh, that's the brake, oh, that's the clutch. It becomes automatic. So learning should be such that ordinary things stay in the back of the mind, and the special things is what you have to focus on. So when I'm driving, I've got the GPS on, so it tells me turn left and right, even when I know the road. Because my mind is distracted, I'm thinking. If I'm focusing on the road, I become stressed and I'll drive worse. But my senses all alert. I'm seeing from the corner of the eye, I'm listening for any signs, I'm watching a bus and a child beyond it. If it's a school bus, a child may run across, and so on. So you learn a lot more about how to do things when you can do it subconsciously. So let me tell you about my own student journey. In school, obviously, I studied what was given, but I started feeling I'm meant to be a scientist because I was good in chemistry, I was good in biology, but I also found interest in music. There was no music in my family, but I was interested. So I didn't let go. I kept this in the back of the mind. I made my own guitar because I could make the frets and started learning as best I could. At that time, there was no internet, no YouTube, but still I had the knowledge in my head. I heard songs and I started playing. On the science front, one day, I had 7 boys, my classmates, holding hands, and I put a little transformer, and with a 1.5 volt battery, I gave them a shock which was very high in voltage, but very low, and didn't kill them, obviously. And they went like that. At that moment, something happened in my brain. Am I doing this because I want to serve science? Or am I doing this because I want to influence people? And I think I made the right decision. I like people. Science is to serve people. And at that time, and from then on, I worked with that principle that whatever I learn has to be useful, not just to me, but for all of us. And then I decided physics wasn't the right subject. It's too dry. For me, I'm not saying it's bad for everyone, and I wouldn't be stuck in a university doing research. I'd rather engage with people and make knowledge democratic. So I started looking at what's best for me, and I figured out medicine would be best. And again, I repeat, technical medicine is fine, but not for me. Research is fine, but not for me. And I decided that being in contact with people, raw, fresh, like in general practice, family medicine, was my cup of tea. And with God's grace, I got into the vocational training scheme, which teaches me how to be a doctor, of course, that was my degree, but how to converse with people, how to speak to district nurses, what the chemist does, what the practice nurse does, what the health visitor does, etc., etc., etc. So I got a whole picture, and I landed in a very good practice to do medicine. But that didn't stop me, because I wanted to know other ways of helping people than just by giving tablets or a sick note or just some other form of administration. So though medicine it was, but people came to me and I wanted to look beyond the symptoms. I did a whole research over a year, and I was funded by the Royal College of GPs in London. Probably this was the first research which was not scientific but soft skills. And the paper was an in-depth experience of GPs' attitudes and how their knowledge of the psychology of the patients affects the doctor's job satisfaction. I interviewed 75 doctors for an hour each. And I couldn't afford to do any further studies, but that completely proved that if you're interested in the human, apart from the symptom that they're giving you, you get a much bigger reach. Because somebody might come with a black spot, and it's because their wife said, oh, you better get it checked, could be cancer. Or they're genuinely concerned, it could be cancer. And if I don't say, look, it's not cancer, but if you're worried, I'll get a hospital test. So there came a time when I realized I had to learn the soft skills properly, which is not taught in medical school anywhere. So I went to Durham University for 2 years part-time and did a diploma in counseling. And my interest in medicine took me into all manners of healing, whether it's acupuncture, homeopathy, retinopathy, or any form that teaches you, a human being, to relax. Healing of any sort. So anything that gets a human being better was of interest to me, because nobody else does it. In fact, I presented a whole case called Arts in Health, in which I got musicians. We measured brain waves to show how the two halves of the brain calms down. The Arts Council of England gave me £3,500 to buy equipment called Mind Mirror, which measures the electric waves of the brain, which is quite complicated, but it shows the two halves. And when the two halves match, that means you're in unison and you're prepared to learn. And I found definitely that when people are singing or praying, the two halves of the brain become unison. So it's like saying the whole team is working together in unison. Otherwise, the mind is thinking one thing, the mouth is saying something else, and your activity is third, which I keep telling you doesn't work. So the whole mind, body, spirit has to be one. And I think in medicine, my old profession, it is very important to gel with the patient, to understand them, to change the vocabulary. If you're talking to a child, you use different words. If you're talking to a university professor, if you're talking to a doctor, the vocabulary changes, the ideas change, and you have to fit in that person at that time. So I hope I'm trying to show you that it's constant learning, and I'm still learning. Every day I'm learning something new, and my curiosity hasn't gone, my diligence hasn't gone, my concentration hasn't gone, and my ability to look forward and change the old idea, throw it away, hasn't gone. And that is why I feel I'm able to give you something from my own life experience, as I promised in this part. So all I have to say to you is, for human beings, it is very important. In fact, it is critical. If you want to stay happy, you need to learn something every day. It's not enough just to stay alive. To live, you have to live amongst people, you have to mix with people, you have to share, you have to give what you can, and they give you what they can. And that is what I feel life is about, because life is about growing physically, mentally, emotionally, and as a learner. So that's all for today. See you next week with another topic. Thank you.